What's up, folks? You're listening to Eagles post-game analysis here at the Philadelphia Sports Table Podcast Show, the longest-running weekly Philly sports podcast show in the world, 12 and a half years strong. The Philadelphia Eagles, wow, amazingly enough, what do we got? Week 11 here as they beat the Detroit Lions down at the Linc by a score of 16-9. What an amazing game from this Eagles defense. A total crapper once again by the Eagles offense. I am Jeff Warren here with my good friend Josh Schuster from PhiladelphiaSoccerNow.com. We're going to dive into our analysis, give our themes, and then grade by unit. First and foremost, Josh, good to see you, buddy, and thanks for filling in for the guys. Really appreciate it, man.
Anytime, Jeff. It's always good to I don't know the word I want to use, but to talk Philly sports.
Talk Philly sports, man. Yes,
it
is.
I guess the best way to phrase it from this game is I'm in a glass case of emotions from Anchorman.
Oh, dude.
About this game. I have many emotions with this game.
Many emotions, which we're going to be diving into, folks, as we get into our themes. But first and foremost, talk about injuries. Man, Lane Johnson just cannot stay healthy. If you're watching on YouTube, I'm actually wearing his jersey. I actually got this jersey his rookie season down at the Eagles Pro Shop at the Linc. I love it, and I love Lane Johnson, but I don't love the fact that he just cannot stay healthy. The guy is definitely a warrior, but every game as of late, he's having to leave with some sort of injury. Today, he was out in the first quarter with a foot injury. Fred Johnson came in and played respectably, I believe, and for the most part, we'll get into some offensive line talk in a bit for sure, folks. Cam Jurgens also left the game in the fourth quarter with I think it was about 3 minutes and 30 seconds left in the game. That poor guy's just been nursing injuries throughout this whole season as well. Josh, should we just get into the shit of this Eagles offense right off the bat? Because I want to end with something good before we go to the break. I want to end with the defense. So why don't we do that, okay? Let's talk about this dog shit offense of the Philadelphia Eagles, where last week they were only able to score 10 points up in Green Bay, but the defense was absolutely lights out. And again, we'll get to the defense. This defense is Super Bowl worthy, but the offense, not even close. And I'm going to kind of go off a little bit here for a couple minutes, so stick with me here. Coming into
Fire
this
away,
game,
man. Fire away.
Look, coming into this game, the theme really was, what would this Eagles offense look like after what we saw up in Green Bay last week? And I'm going to preface this by saying that the Philadelphia Eagles have the most expensive offense in the NFL by a significant margin. Correct. And they are a fucking terrible offense here at this point. And I'm not feeling good about this. I mean, there are such long stretches here, Josh, where they actually look hopelessly inept at almost every turn. And it's happening every week here. First two possessions of the game, the opening drive, and then 3 plays after the Cooper DeJean interception, the Eagles were only able to put up on offense 20 yards on those 2 possessions. Now, let's fast forward a little bit. Their first 7 possessions, 6 of those first 7 possessions, they were 3rd and long. And what did those third downs look like, those 3rd and longs? 3rd and 10. 3rd and 15, 3rd and 8, another 3rd and 8, a 3rd and 10, and a 3rd and 11. Just a couple minutes into the second quarter, they then ran 19 plays for 44 yards. Just brutal. Just absolutely brutal. That's how not to get momentum in the National Football League. That's how offenses don't get momentum, and especially in front of your home crowd. There is a disconnect somewhere within this offense, whether it is with coaching, whether it's the offensive line, whether it's Jalen Hurts, him getting on the same page as his receivers. Perhaps it's all of it, Josh, but there is huge issues going on. Yet they play a team like the Green Bay Packers, who are a pretty good team. They're not the greatest team this season, but they're a pretty good team. And yes, they squeak out a win. They squeak out another win against the Detroit Lions, another very good team. Yes, there were some injuries to the Lions heading into this game. But, man, this offense is nowhere. And I'd love to get your thoughts here.
So I think if we're looking at the last 2 weeks, I think this week was worse than last week
Do you? Okay.
because I think, well, not I think, the defense set the offense up multiple times for them to be able to do something other than
Yes.
field goals, and that's all the Eagles could muster. Um, there is a great level of concern, and I'm not blaming AJ Brown. There is, and I text you this. There is a great disconnect right now between Jalen Hurts and the wide receivers.
Yes.
I don't understand, and the thing I think I have the hardest time with is how you have Jalen Hurts, who I think is I would say top 5 quarterback. I feel comfortable saying that I think he's a top 5 quarterback in the league. I don't understand how you can have a top 5 quarterback in the league, how you can have AJ Brown and Devontae Smith, but you're unable to use both wide receivers at the same time. You
Yes.
also have what I would view as a top half tight end, right? And I'll bring in fantasy in this terms. Most tight ends in fantasy are streamable now. For the most part, you have to play Dallas Goedert because they do shovel passes to him and he gets touchdowns or he's targeted often over the middle. I don't understand how you can have those 3 receiving options with Saquon Barkley as your running back. And the only way the defense or the offense gets a spark is when Tank Bigsby comes in and runs like 2 straight 10-yard gains. I
Yeah.
don't I'm having a very and I've been very consistent from the very beginning of the season when I've started doing these. Well, not this year, but I've been very consistent since the beginning of the season in the post-game shows where I'm going to be harder on the offense than the defense because literally the defense is like patchwork. It's a bunch of draft picks. They have hardly any money invested in the defense. And here we are where the defense is going to have to bail out the offense once again. I,
Yeah.
I don't want to give credence to reports that there are issues with the offense in terms of the players having issues with Jalen Hurts. But at some point, you have to look at the last 2 weeks. It has been horrible. I'm going to set the Giants game aside because the Giants are just a miserable franchise right now. And so if you're going to say, well, the offense came together for that, I'm like, they're just a mess. Like, just be thankful
Yeah.
you're not a fan of one of the New York football teams right now. They're just a total mess, both of them. I don't understand how this offense has such a problem, especially considering how much they were set up by the defense. That's really where my main issue is. I mean, I'm looking at Jalen Hurts' numbers. He completed 50% of his passes. He completed 14 passes tonight. That is not good. And
No.
didn't even manage 150 yards.
Yeah. Only
Including rushing.
4.8 yards per attempt.
Correct. And in order for him to hit 150 total yards of rushing and passing, you have to add in his 30 yards rushing. I mean, it was just, I'm not sure if a root canal is more pleasant than watching the Eagles offense right now,
Right.
but it's pretty close to a tie.
Yeah.
And that's not good.
But where does it start from? Where does this start from on the field, right? Because I'm thinking during this game, Josh, that for years and years and years, we are so grateful to have an offensive line coach like Jeff Stoutland. And I'm wondering what the hell is going on here because these guys don't necessarily seem to be very coachable right now at this point. The Eagles' run blocking is absolutely horrendous. It was horrendous last week. It's been horrendous just about all season. When Saquon Barkley coming into this game is averaging 3.9 yards per carry, that's a problem. He averaged 3.2 yards per carry on 26 carries in this game. You have undisciplined guys on the offensive line that it's just mind-boggling. Last week, Jordan Mailata had 2 false start penalties. In this game, he had a holding penalty. Tyler Steen was absolutely brutal throughout this game in run blocking and in pass protection. You see him throughout this game just standing up because he's missed a block, or he's standing around like he's just missed something. Then you got Darius Cooper with a false start when they're trying to do the tush push in the fourth quarter. Why is he even out there? Fred Johnson with a false start at the end of the game. There's a lot of undisciplined play coming from the offense, but it's really starting with the offensive line. I know Darius Cooper, just mentioned him. He's not part of the offensive line, but still, it's undisciplined. An undisciplined nature coming from this offensive, just from the offense in general. But with the line, I don't understand what's happening when you have a coach like Jeff Stoutland, who has been so good with so many guys who aren't even that talented, and we're having these issues. I wonder if it's injury. I don't want to make excuses necessarily for these guys. I mean, Cam Jurgens, again, out in the fourth quarter, leaving with about 3 minutes left in the game. Josh, I don't know what it is, but it starts with the offensive line. Because what do we say all the time? Have been on this podcast for quite some time. As we talk to various scouts over the years, everything starts with the line. If you don't have a solid offensive line, you're not going to have a rushing attack. You're not going to have a passing attack. That's where it starts. And we don't know what is actually happening here, but this is, I believe, the core of the problem on the field.
So I have a couple of theories on this, Jeff.
All right.
I think what it is it's a combination of things. I don't think it's just one thing. I think the reality is, and I kind of talked about it 2 years ago, like when Kelsey was still playing, that Jalen Hurts is not the one that calls out the blitzes. It's the center. Yeah. Right. And so with him retiring, the problem is the center they have replacing him is a good player if he's able to actually suit up and play the whole game. Right. Like Cam Jurgens is not playing a full game right now.
Right.
And so the reality is, I think part of one issue is Hurts is now responsible for diagnosing the defense. I wouldn't say that's his strong suit. I think there's a lot of strong suits of Jalen Hurts, and I think he's adequate at it. I'm not saying he's bad at it. I'm saying he's passable at it. But in terms of going from Jason Kelsey diagnosing a defense to Jalen Hurts, that's a large step back.
Yeah.
Especially if you're going to rely on your center who's not really able to play.
Yes. And there's hiccups with it. Yes.
Correct. The second problem is there's been leadership change. And I don't know that the offensive line has been able to adjust to that. Right? Like Jordan Mailata has his own show on WIP. And I'm not blaming WIP for the problems on the offensive line. It feels like he has been forced into this leadership role. I don't know that he's actually a leader, right? Like I don't know, because I'm not in the locker room, and I'm not going to speculate. I feel like that's pretty reckless. I do know for sure that Jason Kelsey was a leader on this team.
Yes.
I feel like that leadership is missing. And because Lane Johnson, this goes into the third part of the problem, because Lane Johnson, and you use the term warrior, and he absolutely is. But I think that sometimes players are warriors to a fault. And what I mean by that is, rather than taking a week to rest, to be in better shape for the following week, I put Lane Johnson in this category. He feels that he's needed. He's going to suit up. He's going to give it a go. And now the problem is you've had Lane Johnson prepping all week, not necessarily the backups, and Lane Johnson is gone at the end of the first quarter or the second quarter, and now you're stuck.
Yes.
I think it's a multifaceted problem, and I don't think it's a Jeff Stoutland problem, because I think there's a fourth problem. I told you this is multifaceted.
It is.
When you win Super Bowls, teams poach your players, whether they're really good or whether they're just okay. But the reality is, a really good backup is something that's really hard to come by. And the Eagles have lost players on the offensive line that were backups and also starters to other teams. And when that happens and you're not drafting with high picks, meaning first or second round with offensive linemen, offensive line is very, very hard to draft late, Jason Kelsey being an exception and Jordan Mailata being an exception. I'm not going to put basically a Hall of Fame 6th round pick and a basically Hall of Fame 7th round pick as standards. That's a very rare exception.
Right.
When you have these types of players that are no longer backups, but are starters or moving up the depth chart rather than being the third option, they're now the second option, it really creates a challenge. And I just think it's a lot for Jeff Stoutland to try to be able to manage. And it's not his fault. It's just the reality of he's working with whatever he has. I really think it would be good for Lane Johnson to just take a week, rest a little more, get healthier for the playoffs. Because at this point, I mean, the Eagles are going to the playoffs. It's literally just a matter of seeding now where they're going to be. The NFC East is, like we can say, it's a trash division this year. Right? It wasn't anticipated being that way, but it's a trash division.
Yes.
He needs to get healthy for the playoffs. And that's what I think really kind of the main priority is, because it's going to have ripple effects in terms of backups getting to play.
So does
Sorry
Cam
for the long answer, but there you go.
Yeah. But that's what's needed to be talked about. The details of this offensive line. Because if the offensive line isn't healthy, if the offensive line isn't able to perform the way they need to perform, then who gives a shit about Saquon Barkley and his 3.9 yards per attempt coming into this game? Who gives a shit whether or not A.J. Brown and Smitty are going to be able to catch passes or even get up? Like, who cares if the offensive line is not working? Here's what. Look, we want to talk more about the offensive line, certainly talk about this amazing Super Bowl caliber defense, but I want to take a quick break here, and then when we get back, we're going to be getting into that. Stick with us real quick, folks. We'll be back in just a bit. All right, we are back, and we're going to continue talking about this Eagles offense and how anemic that it has been. Josh mentioned earlier some Jalen Hurts stats in terms of his attempts, his completions, yards. I mentioned how his yards per attempt. But really, when you look at the wide receivers, it's so interesting. We had the week that we had and the narrative with A.J. Brown, him being on Twitch with his friend, playing Madden, and it's a story. All of a sudden, he gets 11 targets. Comes down with 7 balls for only 49 yards, 7.0 yards per reception. Jahan Dotson gets 2 receptions for 43 yards. Devontae Smith was only targeted 5 times. He came down with 1 ball for 8 yards. The passing play selection and what is happening and the lack of the intermediate routes and passes over the middle of the field, again, so baffling. It is so hard to grasp this as this continues to happen with this offense. And this, I believe, is not only coaching, but I believe it's Jalen Hurts too. There was a play towards the end of the game. It was a 3rd down play, I believe. Smitty was wide open right over the middle, running like a drag route, basically. Would have got the first, I think it was 3rd and 3. Would have gotten the first down for sure if Jalen Hurts had a drop back, a 3-step drop back, but he didn't. And I think it's a combination of coaching, and I think it's a combination also of Jalen Hurts just feeling more comfortable passing to receivers near the sidelines. I really do. And sometimes it can be so frustrating. I don't want to crap on Jalen Hurts necessarily, like we were talking about before the break. You know, I think he makes some really good decisions at times. Other times I feel like there's still some hiccups with his game and his decision-making. But man, like the lack of the intermediate passes over the middle of the field, Josh, it just drives me crazy.
Yeah, I don't tend to disagree with you on that point. However, I'm not going to put this year the offense on Jalen Hurts.
Okay.
To me, we've played 10 games. The offense has had maybe 1 good game against a trash Giants team.
Yeah.
We have an offensive coordinator problem. And I say that
and Nick Sirianni too, I think. I do.
Well, and that was going to be my point. This is the
Okay.
second
Sorry.
time in Sirianni's tenure we've had an offensive coordinator problem, and both of them have been quote unquote his boys.
Yeah.
Nick needs to not have input on offensive coordinators. This is bad, and I think what's happened the 2 years where we've had problems on offense, because they're Nick's guys, Nick has had more input on the offense, and that has not gone well. I think that Nick is an excellent head coach, and I don't think you can look at his record and disagree with that.
You can't say he's trash. No, not at all.
Correct. However, I don't think he's an offensive genius.
Right.
And I think that's been abundantly clear. I think he's been the head coach now for he's in his 5th year.
Yeah.
There's been 3 years where the Eagles offense has been really great, where he has been completely hands off on, and 2 years where his buddies have been the offensive coordinator, and we've had massive issues to the point where 1 year the offensive coordinator was let go in the middle of the season while the team had a winning record. It's not there is a coordinator issue. And so I think part of it is, and I don't give Jalen Hurts a pass for having a new offensive coordinator. Like, guess what, man? Number one, in college, you transferred. So, like, you chose to have a different offensive coordinator. So I don't want to hear about he's never had back-to-back coordinators. He chose 1 year to leave the school he was at. So that, to me, is a complete moot argument. Also, when you have successful offenses, you're going to have player or coaches that are poached.
Yes.
But when you bring in the passing game coordinator to be the new offensive coordinator, I don't understand how there's that much of a difference. I'm sorry. There's not.
Know.
Like, Jeff, you and I have watched at the very least the last 3 years. Like, I've been on here. It is basically the same offense as 2 years ago.
It is
what they're running. And
Yes.
so I don't understand the argument about how he's had all these different offensive coordinators. It's literally the same offense. Basically, it's just different lingo. The only change to it was last year when the Eagles had a good offense. It's not a good offense.
Right.
And I know you had mentioned about officiating and everything, and I kind of went off on a tangent about it. I don't believe that officiating costs games, all of this.
I agree.
There were bad calls. The Eagles still won tonight. The reality is there was one missed call, and you can even say that last pass interference penalty or holding penalty on the lines was garbage. So it kind of balanced out from earlier.
Yeah.
The play call, after that questionable call, when it was 3rd and 6, you're going to tell me that Jalen Hurts, Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown, Saquon Barkley cannot get 6 yards?
I know.
I can't live in a world. I think it's a pathetic excuse. If I'm being totally honest, right? This is an explicit one. It's a pathetic excuse by fans to blame officiating. I'm sorry.
Oh, absolutely.
I can't deal with it. The biggest problem with the offense is what Merrill Reese said tonight, right? I listen to the game on the radio and watch it. Every time Shipley is in, and this is coming from a South Carolina fan who watched Shipley destroy South Carolina for 4 years. It was a horrible experience. I'm happy he's on the Eagles now, but every time he's in, they pass the ball. And Merrill Reese mentioned it 4 times tonight. And don't you know, he mentioned it 5 times. The only time that it wasn't a pass play, it was a quarterback draw because it involves blocking. And that's why Shipley is in there.
Yes.
It's a very predictable offense.
Yes.
If the radio announcer is able to tell you what they're doing ahead of time, we've got a problem.
And that was the theme last week with the Green Bay Packers. Predictability. They knew what was coming. They knew the snap count. They knew the play that was being run. And it comes down to so much of this comes down to coaching. Look, I read a tweet that said if Grant Calcaterra is asked to block as the wrapper on a counter again, I'm going to lose my mind. That's what this individual said. And then one of our friends of the show, Patrick down in Florida, responded to this individual and said, Putting players in a position to succeed is the hallmark of good coaching. Putting them in a position to fail repeatedly is the opposite of that. And we are continuing to see that with this Eagles offense. Really quick, going back to the officiating. When I was texting that with you earlier, I wasn't trying to blame the officiating. It was just the whole tush push thing. Like the NFL, when I say the NFL, it's teams, other players, people in general. They have just been waiting for that that false start with the tush push. And they got the call tonight, but it was the fucking wrong call. It was actually the wrong call. It's like, why can't these officials do this shit right? And then they get the call wrong at the end of the game too. And it's like, what the hell is happening here?
So I'm actually, I know I'm in the minority here. I get that. I'm actually okay with the call on the tush push. Because if you look, Steen is putting his hand on the ground in front. He's moving his hand all over the place. Like it is what it is. Like if you're not supposed to move,
I know.
You shouldn't be adjusting your shoulder, moving your hand. Like that's where I'm like, while I may not agree with it, technically by the rule book, it's a false start. So like, this is one of those things where I say you can hate the rule.
Yeah. But the other player was in the neutral zone though. But the other player was in the neutral zone.
I'm just talking about from the Eagles' perspective.
It's just
right?
so stupid. It is.
Yeah.
It's so stupid. Anyway, do we have anything else we want to talk about with the offense? Maybe the fact that, you know what, maybe the fact that I will give them credit for having one good drive of the game right before the half. It was 10 plays, 64 yards, 4 minutes and 55 seconds off the clock. It ended with a Jalen Hurts tush push, touchdown again right before the half. That was Jalen Hurts' first rushing touchdown since the October 9th game against the Giants that they ended up losing in East Rutherford, New Jersey. Again, a major issue with this offense. If that's the last time Jalen Hurts has had a rushing touchdown, a push touchdown, major issues. Anything else with the offense here, buddy, before we move over to the defense? Because we want to end on a positive note because there was so much positive in this game. There was more positive than negative, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think I'll just kind of summarize it with the text I sent you where the Detroit Lions did not even deserve that extra point. So that's kind of how it, like, as much as we are complaining about the Eagles offense. I mean, I can only imagine. So I have a friend who I went to Russia with on a mission trip who attends our church now. And he's been a Lions fan as long as I've known him. So it's like decades at this point. And we were kind of talking about the game beforehand. And I can only imagine how frustrated he is.
Yes.
With Dan Campbell. Like after tonight was the definition of where being too aggressive will kill you.
Yes.
And so I was texting with him throughout the game. So Sean, if you're listening, I'm not going to apologize for your coach because he was an idiot tonight.
Yes.
But thankfully, the Lions offense was worse than the Eagles. And I think that's the main takeaway from tonight is the better of the two offenses, which is not saying a whole lot, won the game tonight.
Yes. And look, it's not because the Detroit Lions defense was that great against the Eagles offense at all, but the Eagles defense was that great against the Lions offense. My gosh, folks, Jared Goff, 14 of 37. 14 of 37. Yes, he was only sacked twice in the game. And yes, he passed for 255 yards, but he had a Jahmyr Gibbs on a long 42-yarder, Jameson Williams on a 40-yarder, Amon-Ra St. Brown on a 34-yarder. Those were huge chunk plays and part of that 255 yards passing. And Jahmyr Gibbs being the highest receiver in this game with 107 yards. He averaged 21.4 yards per reception. But man, Eagles defense holding this Detroit rushing attack, the two-headed lion of Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. 74 total rushing yards, and that's including Jameson Williams' 9-yard rush as well. Only 39 yards on the ground for Jahmyr Gibbs. David Montgomery, only 27 yards on the ground. And yes, Jared Goff was throwing a lot. They had to try to get back into this game, but very, very poor play calling and very poor management by Dan Campbell, as you mentioned. But I think we go to what really helped set the tone for this defense, and it was that Cooper DeJean interception on the Lions' very first drive of the game. Jordan Davis with that awesome tip at the line of scrimmage. My God, he had 3 throughout this game, but that first one fell right into Cooper DeJean's hands. And Eagles were able to get a field goal out of that. But man, you look at Jalen Phillips as well. He had his first sack at Lincoln Financial Field. What a disruptor he was. And you and I were texting about one particular guy in the secondary who, man, I was so worried about coming into this game, and that is Adoree Jackson. Yes, he did give up a touchdown to Jameson Williams, but man, overall, what a game he had. And it's nice to be able to say that, actually. This defense was incredible. And again, Cooper DeJean with that interception, setting the tone throughout, but just pressure on Jared Goff. That disruption led to this Super Bowl caliber defense doing what they needed to do in order for them to win this game. Vic Fangio, MVP for sure.
Yeah. And I had texted you that the last 2 weeks.
Yes.
Vic Fangio, MVP.
Yep.
So I think, I've mentioned it before on here. I think that sometimes stats don't tell the truth.
Yeah.
And I think tonight is a prime example of that. I don't think the stats that the Eagles racked up are factual to how
on the box
score.
In the box score,
yeah,
right?
In the box score. Yeah. I when you read the stats from the box score on the Eagles defense, it looks like they had a very pedestrian night. That's not the case at all.
Right.
I mean, while there may have been a set number of certain pressures, it was very clear that they had been very effective. And Vic Fangio had come up with a very effective game plan to really make Jared Goff very nervous. And so I don't care what the pressure numbers are. I don't care what the sack numbers are. I don't care what the interception numbers are. The reality is Jared Goff looked completely lost tonight. And
yeah.
I really view the stats from the box score for the Lions offense is they're pointless. Goff had a really bad night. Sure, Gibbs and Montgomery, they got off a couple of good runs, but the reality is the Lions have a good offensive line. Like the Lions are built exactly like the Eagles. They have a good defensive line, they have a good offensive line, and they have playmakers. That's literally the blueprint of the Eagles.
It's the formula. Yep.
It's the formula. It's what wins. Like it's what wins.
Yep.
Why other teams don't do that, that's a whole conversation for another time.
Right.
But the reality is the Eagles defense tonight I had texted you before the game started, right? I texted you before the game started and I said, I didn't think the Eagles offense, to be fair, I was right on this, had enough firepower to be able to keep up with the Lions offense. The reality is, I did not anticipate the Eagles tonight. To me, well, I shouldn't say tonight. The last 2 weeks have really defined for me that the Eagles have a very good, if not elite defense yet again.
Yes.
And so if you're going to do that, you only need the offense to put up 21, 24 points, and you're going to win games. The Eagles tonight, I think I heard on the radio, if they won tonight, their chance to lock up the number 1 seed is at almost 50% because of tiebreakers.
Yeah.
I mean, that's crazy.
I know.
But part of it's because the NFC East is just trash, and they've won all the important games that they want to. Like now, after this win tonight, because of the defense, that Giants loss earlier in the season doesn't really mean a whole lot, right? And so that's good news. Like they've come into form, and I feel like if you look at the defense, there's a lot of unsung heroes. Now,
Yes.
Adoree Jackson has been trash. Straight up hot
He's not been great
garbage.
this season. No.
He has been horrible. However, I am an individual that when you have a good game, I will give you a hat tip.
Yeah.
And so to me, it was very clear, especially in the second half, that they were going after Adoree Jackson. And you know
Yep.
what? He rose to the occasion. He had pass breakups. And you know what? If he didn't break up a pass, he was at least in coverage to the point where even if Goff had completed it, it's not going anywhere, which
Yep.
is wildly different than the last couple of
Yep.
weeks. So, Adoree Jackson, you get a hat tip for doing your job, which it's amazing that that's now the state of things, where I'm happy if you can just be adequate at your job, and I'm thrilled and over the moon, but here we are.
Exactly. Look, the cornerback number 2 was a huge concern coming into this season. Even now, it still is a concern. But again, you got to give that hat tip to Adoree Jackson for what he did in this game, and just for every other starter as well. Honestly, I mean, when we get to the grades, I mean, I should just say the defense A+ all around. My gosh, I should just say A+
I
all
think we can
around.
skip the defense and just
Yeah,
say
we
A
may.
plus at every level. Yep,
Yes,
A plus.
absolutely. Again,
And special
Josh,
teams,
yeah.
A plus.
Well, yeah, I was going to get right before we go to our next break. I was going to get to special teams because I do think there's another MVP that is an unsung hero in this game as well. But really quick, Josh said box score really doesn't matter when it comes to the defense. It doesn't, but just to rattle off some of these numbers: 2 total sacks by the Eagles, 3 tackles for a loss, 10 passes defended. 10 passes defended. That's including Jalen Carter's two blocks right up at the front of the line, and
Weren't they
also
both
Jordan
on third
Davis.
downs?
I
I think
believe
they were
so.
both on third downs.
Yep.
Yeah.
Jordan Davis had 3. Quinyon Mitchell had 2 pass breakups. Cooper DeJean had 2. Jalen, again, I mentioned Jalen Carter, Adoree Jackson with 1, Cooper DeJean 2. Anyway, I could keep going and going and going. Anyway, 7 quarterback hits too. Look, the special teams played such an important role in this game as well, and I think an unsung hero was Jake Elliott. Jake Elliott was a huge part of the Eagles' story tonight. Came through in a huge way as there were 30-mile-per-hour wind gusts down at Lincoln Financial Field. And you're like, gosh, how is it going to go? The broadcast was showing those balls being kicked during the pregame warm-ups just going everywhere. Kicked a 49-yarder. Jake Elliott has been on fire this season in general. Back on his game. Last year was a tough year for him, but he was 3 of 3 in this game. Made 1 extra point, but again, that long being 49 yards, he is an unsung hero in this game because the offense was only able to put up 6 points, and he was able to do the rest with his leg. He's definitely another MVP, I think.
Yeah. And I would also add to that, I think the special teams coverage tonight was just, I think it was their best game all season.
Yeah.
I mean, they didn't let hardly any returns. They wrapped up tackles. And because we're probably not going to talk about defensive grades, rightfully so, because they all get an A plus.
Yep.
You look at the decision Howie Roseman had to make this offseason. He opted to keep Zach Bond and let other people go. I don't know that Zach Bond ever misses a tackle.
I know.
I mean, if we want to talk about unsung heroes,
yeah.
I mean, watch the rest of the Eagles defense attempt to tackle. And I'll put Quinyon Mitchell in this category as well. But they don't really throw his way, which is a testament to how good he is.
Yeah.
I don't know that there's a better tackler on the Eagles defense other than Zach Bond.
Yeah.
And it is just amazing after all the years of the Eagles not investing in the linebacker position. They invest in one. And my biggest fear was he's going to sign this huge deal and all of a sudden it's going to become a flop. Like that would be the most Eagles thing ever, because then Howie Roseman will go back to just like patchwork linebackers.
Right.
No.
Yep.
I mean, he is such a pillar of stability. And I know Nakobe Dean's on there as well, right? Like I get that. And Jahad Campbell, like, cool.
Yeah.
Zach Bond is just, he fills gaps to absolute perfection, right? Like every time there's a run play that doesn't go anywhere, you know who's there? Zach Bond.
Yep.
In coverage, he never misses a tackle.
Yep.
He is always, the man is always going to the ball. It's not like, watching kids play soccer where it's clusters of kids just running around the ball. No, like Zach Bond goes where he's supposed to go and he provides backup. And he will run 40 yards down the field to tackle somebody if he has to. Like,
absolutely.
Zach Bond, and I agree with Jake Elliott. The only reason why I don't consider him an unsung hero is because I think last year was a fluke, and he is just so good.
Yeah.
And kicker is one of those things, like when you have a good kicker, you don't give him any credit, right? So I appreciate you giving him credit, but I just think Zach Bond is, for me at least, I should say, the unsung hero, and the close second would be the coverage tonight on both punt returns and kick returns, because too many times this year we've said they're getting these huge returns. Something's been figured out tonight, and that's good.
That's a good thing. Absolutely. All right. Well, folks, going to take another break, last break, and then we're going to get into our grades. Except for the defense, they're going to get an A+, and I'm going to mention that after the break as well. But stick with us. We will be right back. All right, we're back. We're with our good friend Josh Schuster from PhiladelphiaSoccerNow.com, filling in for the guys here. Let's get into our grades. We're going to grade the dog shit offense first, and we're Jalen Hurts in this game. We mentioned the stats earlier. I'm going to give Jalen Hurts a C+. I may be being a little too harsh, but I think there were certain plays we saw. He has very fine touch with the ball. We have seen this over the years, but how many times are we now seeing him overthrowing players when these are good players that can go up, and those 50-50 balls, we see it with Smitty all the time. Overthrew Smitty today. He overthrew Saquon Barkley. Saquon Barkley had his man beat. We're seeing that a lot, and as what we were talking about earlier, no, the failures of this offense are not on Jalen Hurts, but I think his play in this game, again, going back to what you're talking about, whatever's happening with the quarterback and receivers, there's an issue there. And yes, he is the quarterback on this team, and there's something to be said for that. I'm giving him a C+ in this game. What do you give him?
I'm actually going to give him a D.
Okay.
And this goes back to something I had texted you that you said bring up on the show. To me, tonight was Jalen Hurts of 2 or 3 years ago, where it was overthrows, it was poor decision making, it was missing wide open people. But I think, to Jalen Hurts' credit, it shows how far he's grown and how hard he's worked.
Yes.
And so I'm okay with giving Hurts a D once a year. I don't think if you were to ask him, he would say tonight was a good game. It was not a good game. No. There were a lot of plays that were left on the field. And he just didn't have a top 5 QB in the NFL game tonight. And I said, that's how I view him. So if you're not going to live up to that standard, you're not going to get an average grade to me, because I expect that out of you partially. Well, I shouldn't say partially, mostly because you've made me a believer in you, that you are a top 5 quarterback play. So I expect that every night that you play. There were a lot of bad habits that came out tonight. Yeah. And so I think for that reason, I'm going to give him a D. I have no doubt that probably next week it will be a B or A+.
Yep. All right. Very good. Let's move to the running back position. As I mentioned earlier, Saquon Barkley averaged 3.2 yards per carry, 83 yards in this game on 26 carries. Tank Bigsby with 4 carries for 34 yards. My gosh, Tank Bigsby, 8.5 yards per carry. He's average. He was coming into this game, Josh, averaging 7.4 yards per carry. Yes, on 18 carries total, but still, I mean, the guy's been impressive when he's been out there. But I'm gonna give the running backs this week, because once again, it is not their faults that these lanes are not opening up, that the gaps and holes are not opening up for them to run through. I'm going to give the running backs this week a B-. What do you give them?
Question: Is this the Tank Bigsby game? Is that what we're calling this?
I don't know. Every time he's touched the ball, good things happen.
I would say the running game was a B.
Yeah.
I do think moving forward, and I don't think Tank Bigsby is a better running back than Saquon Barkley.
Exactly.
I think if that's your stance on things, you need to reevaluate your football knowledge.
Right.
I do think that what needs to happen is Tank Bigsby needs to get some more carries solely for the fact. I don't care if it's Tank Bigsby. I don't care if it's Will Shipley.
Yeah.
I don't care if it's Joe Schmo from section 233. Somebody needs to give Saquon a break and just have him prepared for the playoffs. And that's kind of where I'm at. And I would prefer it to be Tank Bigsby because they gave up draft picks to get him.
Yep.
But just there's got to be some form of a break for Saquon. The lanes aren't there. He's getting hammered in the backfield. Give him a bit of a break.
Yep. All right. Let's move to the receivers. A.J. Brown, as we mentioned, 11 targets, came down with 7 balls for 49 yards. Jahan Dotson targeted twice, came down with both of them for 43 yards. Dallas Goedert targeted 5 times, came down with 2 balls for 24 yards. And Smitty, 5 targets, only came down with 1 ball for 8 yards. And I have no idea why Kylan Granson is out there, to be honest with you. Have no clue why he's out there. He caught 1 ball for 4 yards, and Saquon caught 1 for 7 yards. Total 135 yards from the receivers. I'm gonna go with a C+ here, but I feel weird about this one. I feel like because the passing attack, because of Jalen Hurts, because of play calling and coaching, I feel like they just didn't serve the wide receivers well. But then again, the wide receivers, A.J. Brown, he basically not stopped, but there was a go route he was running, and he kind of like just was a little lackadaisical on it. I don't know if Smitty was open all the time. He's open a lot. Jalen Hurts maybe didn't see him, so maybe a C area isn't fair. You know what? Maybe I'll give him a B. What do you give him? This is a bizarre one to grade.
I'm actually going D.
You're going D. Okay.
There were a lot of drops tonight. There were too. You're absolutely drops tonight.
Yeah. So, I'm going back down to C.
I can sway you very easily.
Well, yes. Well, I'm a public official. LOL. I'm kidding.
I just feel like, yes, Hurts didn't have his best game, but I also feel like the receivers this game, like, it was not. I kind of hope they just flushed this film because it was not a banner night.
It was very low energy. It was low energy.
Yeah, I don't know if that's because they played 6 days ago or whatnot, but it was rough out there tonight for the receivers. Yeah, I'm gonna go with a D. Too many drops.
Okay, all right. Offensive line, you know what? It's got to be an F. I think they were just absolutely horrendous tonight, as we talked about. It takes a lot for me to give various units on this Philadelphia Eagles team. They're the defending Super Bowl champions and stuff. And I know that really doesn't mean much right now, given the way this offense is playing, but it takes a lot for me to give folks an F. But I'm giving the offensive line an F. Tonight was absolutely horrendous, and they still ended up winning this game thanks to the defense. But what do you give the offensive line?
I give him a C+. I think part of it, I think part of it, Jeff, is we are so used to elite offensive line play.
That's a good point.
If you talk to Cincinnati, if you talk to either of the New York teams, if you talk to Houston, if you talk to these really bad teams, they would have been very happy with the performance tonight.
Okay. I think that's fair.
There were a number of injuries. Like 2/5 of the Eagles offensive line went out before half. So I'm going to give him a C+ because
I'm going to move it up to a D. Yeah, I'm moving up to
There you
D.
go. I'm
You
telling you,
convinced me.
I can sway you so quick. No, I just
You made good points. You did make good points. You put, in all seriousness, like you're able to give some perspective here at times when I certainly need it. You're absolutely right. When it comes to the Bengals, when it comes to the Texans, there are so many teams in the NFL that wish they had half the talent on the offensive line that the Eagles do. We are spoiled. We are used to the dominance. And that's why things are so perplexing right now when you have a talented group of guys like this and the talent level is only getting up to maybe 70%, 80%. And we're like, what the hell's going on with this 20-25% that we're not seeing here? So seriously, it's a very good point.
Yeah, I think even, Pro Football Focus, and I don't view them as like the gold standard or anything like that. They have the Eagles as like a top 10 offensive line, but the reality is because they're not top 3, I think we're having a hard time adjusting expectations. And I think for many of us, we love Jason Kelsey, but I really thought that Cam Jurgens was just going to slide in there and everything's going to be hunky dory. And the offensive line's going to be singing Kumbaya together. And maybe that's not the case.
Right. Okay. All right. Move over to the defense. We said earlier, we're going to give the defensive line, linebackers, and the secondary just A pluses. This was the greatest game of the year. How they could top this, I'm not 100% sure, but A pluses all around for the defense. Special teams, buddy. I have a question for you here because somebody I think was essentially giving me a little guff or given the PST podcast show a little guff when they tweeted out great special teams play on the fake punt, because Detroit is known to do some fake punts, fake field goals. They've been known to do that. Dan Campbell enjoys doing that every now and again. And somebody was like, the defense was on the field. But I'm like, yes, the defense was on the field, but that's technically they've then become like the special teams, correct? Am I correct in that?
Yeah.
I don't know. Okay, I thought so.
I would tend to agree with you. I think part of it is my bare minimum. I should say the bare minimum that I evaluate special teams on is, can your kicker make field goals?
Yeah.
Can your punter be adequate? And most importantly, the heaviest grade I put is your special teams making tackles? Because Jeff, if you watched football probably all day today, how many missed tackles do you see on kickoffs and punts? It's just constant.
Yeah. Yep.
So,
and special teams is about field position. It's about position within the game. That's why it's so important. I'm giving the special teams an A.
Oh yeah,
for this game. Yeah,
they get A+ for me. Jake Elliott did a great job. They tackled when they were supposed to. A+.
Getting into coaching grades, Vic Fangio, A+. I mean, that's what we got to do, right? Yes. Okay. Kevin Patullo, Nick Sirianni. I'm gonna give these. I'm going down to like D. I'm gonna go D here. It's low again. I don't want to go the F because you're gonna have to convince me to like bump it up, perhaps. But I'm going D with the coaching. What do you give? You give an F too, or you?
I give an F to them because I think if you look overall,
I'm right there too.
If you look overall at the Eagles coaching staff, I would say it was a C effort tonight. So if we're giving Vic Fangio A+, the offensive side of the ball has to be just an F. I don't see how you can give him anything else. They were handed a golden platter 3 times and they came away with 6 points.
Yeah.
Not only could they not score on every single one of those, they didn't get a single touchdown.
Yeah.
That's not
You're
good.
Exactly right. That's not good at all. That's not good. Definitely one of the worst offensive coaching games. I mean, aside from even last week, too. Going to be interesting what happens next week with this team. It really is. Philadelphia Eagles, folks, amazingly enough, they are 8-2 on the season, atop not only of the NFC East, but atop the NFC as well. My goodness. This team that has a great defensive identity, a very poor offensive identity at this point. But look, again, they are 8-2. I am happy about that. And I'm also happy that I got to spend some time with my buddy Josh Schuster from PhiladelphiaSoccerNow.com. Buddy, thanks so much for filling in here. Always great talking to you. Let everybody know where they can find you on the socials out there if they want to connect with you.
Anytime, Jeff. It's my pleasure. I'm on Twitter or X or whatever it's called now. Fly Guy Josh 91, and feel free to give me a follow over there. And I'm always happy to talk with you, Jeff.
Absolutely. Always great, my friend. Thank you so much. And real quick, folks, if you're watching on YouTube, you can like and subscribe to the show here. You can also hit that bell to be notified when we post new videos. We're on various social sites as well. Just search out the Philadelphia Sports Table Podcast Show. You can also just search out me as well. I'm over on TikTok as well, at Mr. Jeff Warren. Same as Instagram as well, at Mr. Jeff Warren. You can certainly give me a follow over there. That's going to do it for us, folks. Again, the Philadelphia Eagles here in Week 11 beating the Detroit Lions by a score of 16-9. They're 8-2 in the season. It's going to do it for us. Take care, and we will catch you next time.